I did think Moynihan, JD was like a surgeon cutting with precision into the bullshit being offered by Tim Walz. And one of my favorite moments was when he described Tim Walz's law that repealed a law that requires the care of infants born alive after botched abortions. There was a law in the books since 2015 in Minnesota that said if a baby's born alive after botched abortions, which horrifically happens more than you would think, the law said you must provide life-saving care to the baby. And Tim Walz repealed that law and changed it to just comfort care. You can let the baby die. You do not need to save that baby's life or do anything to try. And Vance raised it. Walz denied that he had done it. And JD looked at him and said, what that I said is incorrect. Do we have that moment, you guys? I think we have this. Let's watch it. Saw 5.
You're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And
these are women's decisions to make about their health care decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved.
Okay. So he tried to say, it's not true. I didn't do the thing you're saying. And then when Walz was like, well, what specifically is not true? Walz is a lawyer. Vance is a lawyer. Walz is not. So Vance is looking at Walz saying, what about my assertion is incorrect? And Walz's response was, it was fact-checked at the ABC debate. This is the moment to which he was referring. Watch.
Her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate.
Just utterly dishonest, because that fact check completely ignored that it is legal to let an infant die on the table after you attempted to kill it in the womb, but it nonetheless survived. That's thanks to Tim Walz. And by the way, we pulled the stats from 2015 to 2023, which was the date Tim Walz repealed the law requiring life-saving care. 24 babies were born alive in Minnesota after an attempted abortion. Think of how horrific that is. This mother goes in, forgive me, I'm trying to do this without passing explicit judgment on abortion, but she goes in to kill her baby. These are late-term pregnancies. The baby nonetheless is birthed, and it lived. It survived the attempt to kill it in its mother's womb, and then she attempts to kill it again. She lets it suffer to death there on the table, and the doctors don't have to intervene. And so 24 were born alive after an attempted abortion between 15 and 23. They were required to try to save the baby during that period. Most died. And then as of Tim Walz's repeal of that law in 23, we don't know how many times this happened because he removed the reporting requirement. He said, you don't have to save their lives, and you don't have to tell us when this happens. Those are the facts, Moynihan. That's just an overview on the fact check and an insight into one of the dynamics. He was allowed to get away with this. There was no attempted fact check, of course, by the CBS moderators on that. They only had them in pocket for J.D. Vance.
I mean, look, Matt mentioned earlier that the worst moment for Vance was on the 2020 election. And that was because Tim Walz turned to him and asked him a question. And this incredibly bad moment for Walz is when J.D. Vance turns to him and asks him a question, which I cannot believe he wasn't prepared for. I mean, that and the Tiananmen thing, which I suspect we'll get to. But that tells you a lot about the moderators, by the way. You have the two kind of most impactful for me moments in that debate is when the two candidates are allowed to interact with one another and ask them pointed questions. I mean, and Kmele is right too, that why, I would love for J.D. Vance, and I think I know why he was doing this. Keep in mind that the whole strategy, this completely insane, bizarro, please fire your political consultant strategy, was to paint him as a weirdo. Do you remember this? He's a weirdo.
Walz's. We have this. So he did this on Jen Psaki's show before he was selected as her running mate. And this was apparently what dazzled Kamala so much. She chose him. Here it is. And then I'll let you take it.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take books away. They want to be in your exam room. That's what it comes down to. And don't, get sugarcoating this. These are weird ideas. Listen to them speak. Listen to how they talk about things. Listen to how your previous guests were right. Like you said, they've told them that they shouldn't talk about race. They can't help it. It is built into their DNA because there is no plan.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that Jen Psaki is a real crackerjack question. She's just really good at it. Weird when you hire Biden's press spokesman. Anyway, I will say this, that whole weird thing, I mean, obviously Vance's response to that last night was to be incredibly normal and incredibly relatable, which I think is what he is when he's talking about policy. If you throw the guy into a donut shop and do the, political thing where you have to press flesh, maybe he's not great at that. But I honestly,
he's the opposite of Trump in that way, Moynihan, right?
He's the opposite of Trump in that way.
Yeah,
almost
Trump's not as great at the policy or the debates,
no,
but he's amazing in the one-on-one and real people settings.
Yes, he's absolutely fantastic. And this is the yin and the yang thing here. They balance each other out wonderfully in that sense that he decided to play it nice. I saw a lot of people and people that I know saying, really should have pushed him on a lot of this stuff. And he was being too nice and saying, we agree on this. We agree. But it was actually a nice breath of fresh air in some ways. But I will say, I want to go back quickly to the Doug Emhoff thing, because I read that this morning when I was on my way into the city. And, the same caveats. 3 people unnamed, it just dropped. I have no idea if this is true, but that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is the exact same thing that happened with Hunter Biden. People say Hunter Biden's not running for president. In a way, I'm not interested in that either. What I'm interested in is the fact that the president's son and, the vice president's son, and the vice president had Ukraine in his portfolio, all of a sudden gets a job for an extraordinary amount of money that he's not qualified for. Doesn't pique your interest at all? Literally not at all? That's incredible to me. This is the same thing that I'm not going to predict the future. I have no idea if people will come back on this, but it strikes me it's the same thing that so many feminists did with Bill Clinton, who apologized for it afterwards and defended it at the time. Said, well, he's our guy. We don't really care what he does as long as he protects, Roe v. Wade, et cetera. This Emhoff thing is, for me, a media test, and it is a relevant issue. Particularly when you have this Jonathan Capehart and these people at the Washington Post saying this is the form of masculinity that we should all aspire to. Well, if it's true that he's beating up women, I would suggest that it's not at all, right?
No.
And this is, the whole thing drives me crazy from the media perspective. And again, I don't know if it's true, and I'm giving him, the benefit of the doubt on this, but that should be investigated by people, and it's incredible that it hasn't been.
I'm offering the appropriate caveats for this point in a story, but I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not. He doesn't deserve it. He banged the nanny while he was married and then either aborted the child, or now this report by the Daily Mail suggests maybe there was a miscarriage of the child, and they tracked down the original affair partner, the nanny, and got her on camera. And she is reportedly saying that he paid her $80,000 to go away and keep her mouth shut, but that, according to friends, she had a miscarriage and she blamed him. And we don't know why she blamed him for the miscarriage, but they're also reporting in the Daily Mail that she called emergency services to her house possibly including cops at one point during the pregnancy. And what was there? I mean, an enterprising media would want to know if this were somebody with the last name Trump or Vance. They would go figure out immediately what they had on their hands. And a Democrat Party that hadn't committed a coup and just decided at the top levels who was going to be the new candidate might have done Oppo research on those they were considering to make sure there weren't these kinds of skeletons in the closet of the person who would be the very first gentleman in the White House in U.S. history. Because, they're always talking about how Trump's a bad role model and, this isn't somebody who our kids can look up to. How about this? Do they care that we're about to elevate as the first gentleman somebody who cheats on his wife, impregnates the nanny, abandons his responsibility toward her, according to these reports, and actually might be a woman beater? Do they care? Because I care a little. Hungry Root is one very easy way to eat healthy. They send you fresh, high-quality groceries, simple, delicious recipes, simple, that's key, and essential supplements. It's like having someone else do all the planning and shopping, that's the bad part, so that you don't even have to think about it. Hungry Root gets to know your personal health goals, dietary restrictions, favorite foods, how much time you want to spend cooking, and more. Then they build you a personalized cart for the week, including easy 4-ingredient recipes to put those groceries to use. Each order is fully customizable. They've got fresh produce, high-quality meat, healthy snacks, and more. Everything from Hungry Root follows a simple standard. It must taste good, be quick to make, and contain whole, trusted ingredients. Hungry Root right now offering the Megyn Kelly Show viewers 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/Megyn to get 40% off your first delivery and get your free veggies. hungryroot.com/Megyn. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.